Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins, and welcome to our next installment of Financial Lovemaking. I'm here with S. Tia Brown. She is my partner on this. How you doing today, Tia?
I'm good. Partner in some ways, but not in others. I'm still single, gentlemen.
Right? I know. I got to put a ring on it. That ring's it's in the mail. It's in the mail.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Certified, I hope.
You didn't get the thing that I sent from the guy, that I bought from the place. Yeah. Well, anyway, as people know, financial lovemaking is our effort to really talk about love and money and everything in between, and particularly in love and life, so that we can all talk about how we can make our family stronger, how we can make our lives better, and how we can use money as a tool to build as opposed to a weapon to destroy. And so one of the
that was deep. A tool to build as opposed to a weapon to destroy. I like that.
I spent all last night coming up with that. I hope it came out as smoothly as I imagined it would. So
time well spent. Time well spent.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. And so Tia, you're in New York right now, and I'm in Chicago, where the weather's been pretty horrible. And I just saw this story this morning that really, really kind of threw me for a loop. It was a story about a woman named Joyce Carol Vinson, who was a 38-year-old woman who died in her apartment, and which is tragic enough, but when she died, she was in her apartment for 3 years with the TV on, and they didn't find her until she was 41 years old. Did you see that story?
I did. It's an absolute tragedy. It's something that most people feel like you can't even imagine how a loved one of someone's can go without being called, visited, anything, no email for 3 whole years. So when you read the article, you really kind of get a glimpse into Joyce's life, and you realize that, she had friends. She had family, but still no one was able to track her down, and it kind of just went unnoticed until the authorities decided to come to her home because the Department of Buildings needed to investigate. So, it's absolutely one of the saddest stories that I've read in many years. One of the first things that came to mind when I heard about it was kind of this concept of The Walking Dead, right? That's a very popular television show right now, and it's about zombies kind of taking over the world. But there's another way in real life that we can be walking with blinders on, right? And one of the things that I know had to be going on in Joyce's life at that time was depression. I read that she was in an abusive relationship, and even though she was a beautiful woman, a bright woman, and at one point had a very successful career, she began to isolate herself. Her friends had reached out to her about a year before authorities believed she passed away unsuccessfully. Her family had also hired a private investigator to kind of track her down, and they were unsuccessful. So she really isolated herself, and she was really just dealing with some type of emotional trauma. We also know that she was in an abusive relationship. So we know all of these things coupled together, isolating yourself in an abusive relationship. She was in, unfortunately, a very, trying to say politically correctly, urban ghetto environment where she said there were lots of trash, there was foul smell. So that's why no one could smell her body. And her mail was being delivered into a slot into her apartment. Even though there were spider webs around the door, no one took notice. So, the lesson that I would definitely say comes to mind from this is the importance of really being loving as a community, right? One of the principles of financial lovemaking is loving together means living together. And this isn't just applicable to a romantic relationship. This is also in the broader sense of community. Even when someone is doing something that we necessarily don't agree with, perhaps being in a relationship that we don't agree with, and we see them kind of going down that hole, and they're pushing away, we really have to push ourselves as a community to say, is there any way that I can help? Is there something that I can be doing differently as a member of this community of people who loves humanity, right? So if had any neighbor come to check, call the cops, just saying, we haven't seen this door opened. Any coworkers said, hey, we see something going on. Maybe something would have happened differently, not necessarily even preventing her death, but maybe it wouldn't have been 3 years before someone found her body. And there wouldn't have been so many unanswered questions because her body was so badly decomposed, they have no idea what the cause of death was. What do you think, Boyce?
Well, this article, which was written by Yolanda Spivey on naturallymoi.com, it really made me think about another aspect of financial lovemaking, which comes down to investing. Investing, you don't just invest money, you invest time, energy, love,
absolutely,
etc. And it makes me think about two angles to this. One is, when you think about that fear, I think that people read the story and they were fearful of, oh my gosh, what that could happen to me. What if I were to die alone and no one knew that I was dead? When I think about that, I think about my late great-grandmother, Marilda Taylor, and I remember that, she was struck with Alzheimer's in the last 5 years of her life. And because she had made investments with her children at an early age, she had a daughter that literally dedicated her whole entire life to taking care of her, and watching over her every second up until she was dead. And a lot of children do that for their parents. And this is the result. This, in my opinion, in my mind, was her retirement plan. I mean, she didn't have a lot of money. Right. She used to, scrub people's houses for a living. So she didn't have a whole lot of money. She saved. She was a good saver, but she didn't have a lot of wealth. But she had another type of wealth, which came from the wealth of having people that loved her enough to want to be there for her. The other type of investing I think about is, investing in each other. As you mentioned, the preserving the village, realizing that if you have that relative who let's say is struck by mental illness, because you never know. I mean, it sounds like this woman might have been going through something toward the end of her life that maybe led people to feel that they couldn't help her, that they didn't want to help her, that they didn't want to reach out to her. And I think that ultimately when it comes to making investments in love, in each other, we have to fight through some of that and just understand that
absolutely.
If you have a relative who's dealing with mental illness, invest in them anyway. My uncle / older brother, he was like an older brother to me, but he was actually my uncle. When he died last year, I was just coming to understand that he was affected by mental illness. That this is why he was never able to get it together. He was an alcoholic for a lot of years. He had a lot of struggle. And for years,
self-medicating.
Yeah, for years we were very frustrated with him, and it was right before he died that I had just kind of gotten into a pattern where I realized, look, he's not going to change. He's dealing with something psychologically that I probably can't really understand. So my job is not to attack him. It's not to fix him. It's really just to love him. So I would go see him every couple of months. Give him $20, buy him, his favorite candy or whatever, and then go, and so that way I was able to still live my life without the burden of some of the choices that he made, but at the same time, knowing that I did what I was supposed to do by loving him. And if I had figured this out 10 years earlier, I would have been doing that earlier, and we would have had a better life together. So, that's what I think about this. I think that we have to invest, and remember, investing is not just financial, it's deeper than that. T, I'll let you get the last word.
No, I completely agree with you. I think the other thing that we should remember is that when we invest in others, it comes back in different ways. So that investment of reaching out and doing more, like you're saying, for your uncle is going to come back to you in a way that you could not possibly imagine. So I want people to remember that. I also want people to remember that depression is a very real issue in all communities. So when you see people withdrawing, when you see people not behaving in a manner that they normally would, when you see people not going after their dreams, people looking sad, people engaged in relationships and maladaptive coping skills like drinking. These are things that we need to be mindful of, not just always accusing a person of, being a burden or saying, I don't want to deal with it, they're not getting their life together. That this may be a really serious issue that they're going with, and that we need to find ways that are supportive. And I think one of the things that you said that was so great was that I had to find a way to be supportive for my uncle in a way that didn't make me have to deal with the consequences of his choices, right? Because we know even when people have mental illness, they are still making a choice in some way. And if we can't help them do something that we think is completely healthy, how can we help them in a way that can be effective and still preserve the community? So my last words would always just be, love yourself, but love others. If you see someone going through some type of struggle, you don't have to change your life in a way where it makes you responsible for them, but check in. Show a little bit of kindness, show a little bit of compassion, and hopefully it can help save a life.
Absolutely. I wish somebody had checked on this poor lady. 3 years. I was thinking, why didn't they come and turn the electricity off? That's amazing. I didn't know you could leave a TV on for 3 years. But hey, it's life. And I guess when we go, and that's, and I guess theoretically, if you are dead, you're not necessarily concerned about what's happening with your body because you're in a better place, hopefully. So, may she rest in peace. And also thank you very much, for your time, Tia. It was great talking to you today.
As always, have a great day, and thank everyone for listening, and tune in next time.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.